This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Second hour of Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network. Stormy Buonantony off. She is on the sidelines for Cal and Duke this weekend. You can check her out. Double check for me, Justin. I think it's on ESPN. But either way, you can see Stormy on the sideline for that one. She'll be back, of course, on Sunday as we have the desk for Countdown to Kickoff. That's starting at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Don't tell me. That is noon Eastern time. We'll lead you up in the last 60 minutes all the way to kickoff of the NFL games. Derek Stevens will be at the desk with us to start the show, as he is every weekend, as well as Warren Sharp in 30 minutes before kick to give you some last-minute insights, part of a great slate of morning programming here on VSiN to get you ready for NFL Sunday, so make sure you check that out. Every Sunday, coverage starts 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern with Mitch and Paulie. Quick aside, because this is making the rounds, with this postseason in baseball underway now, Phillies have a series coming up here, and they are offering the 999 challenge in park. So they're actually giving you a package on this thing, the 9 beers, 9 hot dogs in 9 innings. And I got to tell you, they're offering it all as one go, so you have to take the box with you. Lukewarm beer and oddly cold hot dogs not go well. Even though the price is there, you got to find a different way to package this thing, put this up, and see if anybody feels like they can actually do this. But we start with college football here in this hour because we have some pretty interesting matchups coming up a little bit later tonight in the world of college football. Week 6 beginning in earnest, although we did see some games last night. Let's start with Charlotte at South Florida. Now, on the surface, a game that doesn't really have that much going for it. Bulls are a 27.5, 28-point favorite. On the money line, if you got $5,000 laying around, you can put it down on South Florida and get 100 coming back to you if they win the game. Total is 54.5. South Florida obviously has a lot on the line every time they step onto the field because, of course, they want to maintain their position as a team that can make it to the college football playoff. I don't think there's a team really that has a more impressive resume at this point than South Florida, taking out Boise State the way they did and, of course, beating on Florida. We will see if those wins age as well as we expect them to. But still, South Florida for a Group of 5 team or a Group of 6 team, I think technically now, they will have a shot to make it to the playoff. But there's a couple of notes for this game that we should throw out there. First off, for those who haven't been keeping track of Florida, it's going to be Charlotte. We do have a quarterback change that's been there for the last about 2 weeks or so. Connor Harrell lost for the season. Duke transfer Grayson Loftus last time out had to come into the game in relief. He will make his first start of the season. He's been appearing in these games off and on, but Loftus will get the start for the 49ers here today. Charlotte 1-3 straight up, 1-3 against the spread. They've covered that one contest, and that was all. The question I think that really comes to mind here is, can Charlotte's offensive line do anything in either pass protection or the run game? Loftus was sacked 6 times in the loss to Rice this last time out. He was under pressure on 21 of his 37 dropbacks against the Owls, arguably the worst rushing attack in the country. Through 4 games, Charlotte has rushed for a grand total of 353 yards and averaging just about 2.5 yards per carry. That's not going to be anything that keeps you in any of these contests. This would all be about, I think, South Florida potentially falling asleep at the wheel. They do have a road trip against North Texas coming up next week, so that's something that maybe they could fall asleep, maybe not worry about it, take the foot off the gas late, not cover a big number, whatever cliche in sports betting for a college you want to use. There's been pointed out by others that with some jobs opening up, that South Florida doesn't want to let this thing slip away, and that maybe you'll put the foot on the gas because of all of the jobs that Alex Golesh might be up for. But either way, it's a very big spread. I'd be surprised if we're any sweat here whatsoever. And in fact, the fact that it's underneath that 28 at some spots, I'd lean toward laying 27.5 if anything else, and not going out there and trying to get cute with Charlotte, who has really shown us nothing up to this point. Also kicking off at the same time, Western Kentucky and Delaware has been pretty solidly 2.5 across the board. Total is 61.5. Paul Bovey, professional bettor, was with us earlier in the week. Gave his thoughts on this total for the contest. Make sure you go check out the Money Moves podcast. You can get his insights as well as Chris Vasile, who's with us the next day, and others on what the weekend will be. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Delaware's offense, look, this is a matchup of 2 teams that you would think Delaware defensively has not been particularly impressive, and Western Kentucky offensively has had, I would think, some bland spots in their offense, if you want to call it that. They come into this thing in terms of their rushing attack, 73rd in the country, the Hilltoppers do, and expected points added per rush. They haven't shown an overt explosiveness to their offense at this point right now when you look at some of those. In terms of percentile for explosive play rate so far this season, underneath the 50th percentile, that would be Western Kentucky. So they don't generate explosives in that regard. From a success rate standpoint on 3rd and 4th down, Western Kentucky has not been particularly great either, 80th in the country. But your floor is probably raised by playing Delaware's defense, which has been pretty poor in all of those regards, ranking no higher than 123rd in expected points added, either pass or run. I think what the matchup is all going to be about is Delaware's offense. Delaware's offense has looked legit, despite the fact that, again, you're on your second string quarterback here. Every metric points to this being one of the better teams in the country. In terms of an offense, expected points added per rush for Delaware, 26th in the country. If you look at the available yards for them too, 20th in the country. Early down success rate really hasn't been there, but they've been dynamite on 3rd downs. The 19th best team in terms of success rate on 3rd down so far this year. Given what we kind of know about Delaware, I wouldn't be surprised if we get to that 3 across the board. We're sitting at a bunch of juiced 2.5s. Circa does not have that juiced. It's -2.5, -110. So if you want to come out here and bet that side, if you feel like underneath the field goal is the way to go. But it does seem like we're going to get a high-scoring, tight affair. Don't know much about Delaware. I can't wait to watch them. This has been a pretty popular team when the betting circles in the early going here in their first season in the FBS. I mean, you saw the total that was really popular the other week against UConn, and they were very popular in that letdown spot against the Huskies. We have seen a lot of betting action around this Delaware team so far this year, and this is going to be another one of them at 4 p.m. Pacific time against Western Kentucky. Do have a bet here, and was listening to the breakdown from Tim Murray and Matt Humans on the College Football Betting Podcast. You can find those wherever you get your podcast. Tim and Matt did a great job. They have a Mountain West Minute at the end of the show, and San Jose State -2.5 with a total of 58.5 came up against New Mexico later tonight. If you were with us earlier in the week, you know where I'm at here. Took New Mexico on the money line at +115 against the Spartans. San Jose State coming off of a loss to Stanford that they're going to chew on for a little bit. Look, they were leading late. They blow the game. They blow Walker Egan's best game of the season. Egan has not been good in any way, shape, or form in the games leading up to that game against Stanford. And then he finally breaks out, has his best passing performance, and they can't hold on against Stanford. And Stanford probably should have covered with a drop pass on that 2-point conversion late against this team. But I'm just not there with San Jose State. You look at every single number for this team, especially from the standpoint of their defense, which has not been good, has really been lacking if you look at many different metrics, and really, really ugly if you're talking about almost every single defensive metric that's measured in some advanced form. And for New Mexico, this is a group that I think has been very impressive. Eck out there in New Mexico, bringing in his core from Idaho. It has looked like this team hasn't missed a beat from its, at least from a continuity standpoint, from its time playing together over there at Idaho. If you look at this from the passing game for New Mexico, 24th in the country in efficiency from an expected points added, 3rd and 4th down success rate, top 50 team in the country. They are really good on that end. And very quietly, this has always been the bugaboo. We've seen this before for the Lobos. We saw Devin Dampier last year lead an offense that had been pretty above average for the most part, but the defense really let them down. Defense, this arguably could be the best New Mexico defense we've seen in a really long time across the board, ranking no lower than about 60th in the country in certain spots. One of the things that stands out as a blemish on the resume for New Mexico, they have not been good on 3rd downs, 112th in the country in terms of success rate, 47.5%. So maybe that's something that San Jose's offense can take advantage of. But this spread and shred has not been shredding. It has not been very good for San Jose at all. I think they're one of the more overrated teams in the country, starting with their outright loss as a 14-point favorite to start the year against Central Michigan. And I think that this is going to continue against a New Mexico team that has been brilliant in the early going for a team that we didn't really expect that much from. So New Mexico money line here against San Jose State for me is the play. We also have at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time 2 games kicking off, West Virginia and BYU. BYU right now about a 20-point favorite, total of 47. We saw this get bet up from as low as 18.5 up to this 19.5 point mark, depending on where you shop. We've seen the total dip as low as 46. We're starting to see some buyback. Circa actually opened 48.5 before getting hammered down there. Didn't really have much on this, but our nightcap do. Colorado State and San Diego State, the Mountain West matchup that we will see at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Right now, San Diego State, a 6-point favorite. Total's been bought up from 39 to 41. here at Circa and in other spots. As we saw, Brousseau got the start for Colorado State last week against Washington State. That was an absolute nightmare for the Rams. Offense generated just 3 points. Brousseau himself was abysmal. If you look at just what he was asked to do, couldn't actually perform. He's going to get another start here. But in a, I think, move of desperation, Colorado State has now switched play callers, so Jay Norvell seems to be grasping at straws at this point right now. We've talked about this a lot, I think, with this team. I do have the under on Colorado State, so it's not a group that I had the highest expectations for. It was a team that took advantage of a soft schedule in Mountain West play last year, and now you get to go in this spot with a quarterback that is getting his second start that has not played particularly well. And I understand San Diego State has been all over the place. They blow out Cal at home in a weird game. They go out to NIU, play a disgusting, ugly, but win 6-3 contest on the road against the Huskies. But coming back here against Colorado State, I think it's a pretty good spot to kind of jump in on the momentum for San Diego State, if you will. I understand their offense hasn't been great. There's not really many metrics you can point to, but I think this is more about where we're at with Colorado State than it is with SDSU. Where the number gets to is going to be, I think, the story of the night. And obviously in this matchup, you have a total of 41. Number really hasn't budged off 6.5. Some spots got bet up to from 5.5. But no sevens really appearing at all. We have plenty of time from now until kickoff, but there doesn't seem to be a real rush from the market standpoint to lay the number with San Diego State. So excited for those and excited for the NHL season getting started next week. Puck drops on October 7th, and VSiN's got you covered every step of the way. Our NHL hub at VSiN.com/NHL, packed with team previews, futures, insights, awards, all sorts of stuff, man. Jonathan Davis did a great job, so please make sure you go check it out. New content and features rolling out all season. You're going to have everything from Stanley Cup contenders to player props in a single place. So all you have to do is go to VSiN.com/NHL. That is VSIN.com/NHL, and check it out. Also, I would do the selfish plug. Check out Pod of the Futures. We had Jonathan Davis on this week, Mitch Moss and myself, to discuss his outlook on the NHL season. You find that wherever you get your podcasts. When we come back, Chris Vasile is going to be with us, covers.com. Take a look at what's going on across the pond in the Premier League and more, plus a little college football as well.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, back here on Money Moves, we have a lot to get to as we're getting closer and closer to the football weekend. And that includes, of course, football on the pitch. We have a lot to get to with our next guest. Chris Vasile is with us now. You can follow him up on Twitter, as I do, hold on. Yes, I have this here. At MC_silly3. Is that right? Do I have that right? My notes are freezing up on me.
Spot on, JVT. Spot on.
Okay, there we go. See, all right, I remember things. All right, people are worth it, like Chris. All right, let's talk a little football before we get to football. I'm curious about this first off. So we've had 2 match days, if you will, of Champions League play. We still have plenty of time for this thing to get decided. Certain teams get off to slow starts, whatever it is. You know, a team like we're going to talk about, Chelsea, gets a 1-0 victory in the Champions League match in their second day. Is there anything from a future standpoint you think is worth looking at here in the Champions League, as we have had 2 matches now in the books?
Honestly, JVT, the way the odds have shaped out so far over the first 2 days, they've kind of held steady in terms of, any sort of big line movement. Obviously, you got your Barcelonas, your PSGs, Arsenal, Liverpool's kind of at the top of the odds boards. With the way the new format works to kind of the league phase to go before the knockout rounds, there's not too much that kind of stands out right now from a betting perspective. I do think Bayern Munich at plus 900, there's a little bit of value there. They've just looked tremendous throughout the Bundesliga and the first 2 games of the Champions League. So there might be a little bit of value there. But we're not going to see any sort of, line movement in the futures market until we kind of get into the 7th or 8th match day.
Sure. The square in me that doesn't have much depth of knowledge here sees teams like Man City and Liverpool at 14 and 18-1 respectively and gets a little tempted by it, but you understand what the top of this looks like when it comes to these teams that they're going to be competing with in the Champions League. All right, with that, let's head to this weekend and what we're going to see. You've got a couple of plays here, so let's hit on those. I've mentioned them a couple of times, so let's talk about Liverpool in this matchup they have this coming weekend. Total for them in terms of team goals, under 1.5. It is a big one. They get Chelsea, who has been kind of all over the place, just lost to Brighton in league play. So what do we do with this one?
Yeah, JVT. This is the big game of the weekend. Pick of the litter, if you will. Maybe we should just kind of bet a Chelsea red card at plus 350 and kind of move on. They're on a run where they got 3 red cards in 3 consecutive games. But in all seriousness, we're going to go kind of Liverpool team total under 1.5 goals minus 120. Teams played midweek. Chelsea 1-0 winners against Benfica. Liverpool were 1-0 losers out in Turkey. The problem is that kind of neither team scored, a goal from their own. Chelsea's goal came of the own goal variety. This is an important fixture. Liverpool have not fared going to Stamford Bridge. They've lost three of the last 4 games on the trot there. The way their attack is kind of set up now, Liverpool, we all thought they were going to kind of run and gun and run away with this Premier League title, but they're kind of in disarray up front. They've only generated 4 shots on target across their last 2 matches, 4 shots in each match. They got Mo Salah starting on the bench in the last game against Champions League action. They're kind of in 6s and 7s right now up front. Chelsea, they are solid defensively. I know they've kind of had a bit of a rough patch, but in a game where expected to be a tight, cagey affair, team total for Liverpool under 1.5. I think that's the way to go in a low scoring game.
All right, team total under 1.5 for Liverpool and against Chelsea. Let's go to Saturday morning where Leeds will be taking on Tottenham. Form currently for Tottenham's kind of shaky. Last weekend got pushed into a draw, and they needed a late goal against the Wolves to get that result. What do we think of what Leeds has in store for them Saturday morning?
Yeah, I think Tottenham is in for a rude awakening up at Ellen Road there. I like Leeds team total over 3.5 shots on target. You're getting plus 120. Kind of on a day, on Tuesday, Tottenham took on Bodo Glimt in the Champions League, and kind of on a day where, you had the likes of Bayern Munich, Chelsea, Liverpool playing. I was watching Tottenham take on this small minnow team in the Arctic Circle. Why? Because I'm a sick degenerate and I love soccer. Based on watching, the kind of the small minnow teams. But most importantly, Tottenham's form has not been good. Defensively, they're giving up plenty of shots on target. That performance against Bodo looked labored. They didn't kind of turn on the flare until they were down 2-0 and kind of could have been down 4-0 if not for a missed penalty and a couple of, sitters that Bodo Glimt missed. Now they got to come home from the Arctic Circle. They got to travel back to 3 hours north to Ellen Road to face a Leeds side that's rested. They're in good form in the offensive third of the pitch. They've scored 5 goals over the last 2 games, 12 shots on target combined over those 2 games as well. I don't think this is a great spot for Tottenham. I think their form is shaky, and Leeds is a good team that can put up plenty of opportunities in attack. So at plus 120 for 4 shots on target, I'll take that every day of the week here.
Real quick, before we move on to college football, for shots on target, what are the specifications for a shot on target? Because is it like hockey where if you hit the post, it actually does not count as a shot on goal? How do they measure a shot on target?
Yeah, correct. So same as hockey, a goal post or the woodwork, if you will, those are not counted towards shots on target. Basically, a shot on target is either the goalie has to save it or the last defender has to save it from going in. So if there's a defender on the goal line, makes a goal line clearance that kind of beats the keeper that's in the 6-yard box, that'll be a shot on target. So yeah, the last defender or anything that kind of hits the frame of the goal.
All right, let's move to college football stateside here. We'll get to your thoughts on Cincinnati, Iowa State, but we haven't had many thoughts throughout this week. Miami and Florida State, so let's go there. Hurricanes in a spot. They are now the odds-on favorite to win the ACC. They can kind of put a nail there or at least start to hammer that thing a little bit in for a spot in the ACC championship game if they get this win over the Seminoles. What do you make of this?
Yeah, JVT, I'm in on Miami here at minus 4 points over Florida State. Last week we talked Oregon versus Penn State, and I kind of, avoided picking James Franklin like the plague. This week, I'm just hoping I don't get Cristobal'd into a loss. On paper, these two teams are are high scoring, should be a fun game to watch. The only problem for Florida State, obviously off that loss against Virginia on Friday, they gave up 211 rushing yards and were bullied on both sides of the line of scrimmage. This Hurricane side is great in the trenches. They should win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, and I think they're going to cruise to victory. If we throw in the fact that the Hurricanes are rested off a bye week, they're completely healthy. I don't see them losing this, massively important game as the number 3 ranked team in the country, even on the road in a rivalry type environment. If you look at kind of quarterback play, yes, Tommy Castellanos has been solid, at times for Florida State. So is Carson Beck for Miami, 72.6% completion, 7 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions this year. His only lone kind of blemish against a good Florida defense that kind of, has everybody kind of, turning the ball over essentially. I know Florida State had 3 picks last week against Virginia and Chandler Morris, but I don't believe the Hurricanes are going to lose the turnover battle, so that will limit Florida State's opportunity for any short fields. And possibly, if Florida State kind of beat Virginia last week, and they might be inclined to be taking the points this week, but the way the game played out, that kind of crazy ending, and how it was kind of demoralizing for Florida State, I think the Hurricanes on a rested, off a bye week, I think they're going to blow the doors off Florida State in this one.
All right. I like it. Very strong. Let's go to a Big 12 matchup. This is a very popular game, and I think it seems to be one-sided here on the show, at least. I like Cincinnati. Talked to a couple of people that also like Cincinnati, and it sounds like you're on the same side with the Bearcats.
Yeah, let's roll with Cincinnati here. We'll take a -1.5, -110. Admittedly, I've not been high on Iowa State this year. I faded them a couple of times against Kansas State. That was kind of a debacle for Kansas State. We've seen how bad they are, over the first 6 weeks of the season. Faded them again against Iowa. We're 1-1 doing so. We're going back to the well, fading them once again. On paper, this team kind of rates out well, but I'm not sold on them being the number 14 team in the country. Wins against, I mentioned, Kansas State, Iowa, Arizona don't exactly hold their weight. Now they have to play in just their second true road game of the year in a very tough place to play in Nippert Stadium when the Bearcats are actually playing good football. And if you look at this Bearcat side, outside of their 20-17 loss against Nebraska in the opening game, the offense has kind of clicked into gear. 37 points, 70, and 34 points across their last 3 wins, respectively. Now they get to go up against a Iowa State Cyclones defense that's pretty banged up, missing some key pieces in the secondary. I just don't see Iowa State being able to keep up offensively with this Bearcats side. The Bearcats are averaging over 8 yards per play. That's 2 full yards more than Iowa State is. So all things considered on home field, I'll take the unranked team laying the 1.5 points.
Chris, always good to talk to you, man. Thank you very much for the time, as usual, and good luck this weekend, all right?
Thanks, JVT. You too.
Yep, you got it. Again, a recap for you if you're just joining us. A couple of Premier League plays and a look at college football for Chris Vasile. Liverpool, under 1.5 team total goals against Chelsea. Leeds, over 3.5 shots on target against Tottenham. In college football, Cincinnati, 1.5, laying it there against Iowa State, and laying the 4 with Miami versus Florida State. Yeah, looking forward to this. I'm really trying to work out and starting to try to get into the handicapping and betting process of soccer a little bit more, especially from the Premier League standpoint. And do think that Chelsea, given what they've gone through with the red cards, might be a little bit more live in the market than most think against Liverpool. But we will see if that is actually the case. All right, Justin, a little business. You want me to do this here? You want me to do this now or not? Okay, we'll do it now. The VSiN Pro subscribers, you now have access to our new AI player prop projections powered by Opta AI, the same trusted brand behind soccer analytics in the UK. How about that? That's fitting. You'll get AI-driven projections from quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs across the most popular prop categories compared directly to current DraftKings lines to highlight value, sort by player game or stat, and track how projections shift throughout the week with injury updates and team trends. VSiN Pro subscribers can now check them out. VSiN.com/props. Check it out, man. It has been absolutely fantastic. We've been using it. Stormy's been using it here on the program. Again, VSiN.com/props.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're tracking a lot of stuff. Now, you might say, well, John, there's nothing going on. No, there is, okay? Because, again, this is part of my identity now. I don't know if Luke's back there, as he'll maybe feel some pride here, but Wrexham's got a big one going on right now, okay? So we're tracking this thing. We also have a big thing going on behind the scenes here at the Vegas Stats and Information Network. As I bring that up, I also unveil that Zach Cohen, our senior editor here at the Vegas Stats and Information Network, is with us on the Progressive Guest Line. And, Zach, the big thing that we have brewing, you spoiled, and I retweeted earlier this week, the cover for the NBA betting guide, which will be out very soon. I may or may not owe you one more written piece. That will be to you in a couple of hours. Please don't get mad at me. But what's going on? How's the betting guide going? What's your percentage of completion at this point right now?
I would say it's like 80. Yeah, about 80. I mean, I have a few more team previews to write. I held off on the Pacific Division because there was all that uncertainty with Jonathan Kuminga. I'm doing that all now, sorting through all of that, and then I'll edit, all of our hosts and analyst plays, and we'll be pretty much ready to go. I mean, on Sunday, it'll be pretty much 95%.
I'm sure you're inundated with our cohorts here at the Vegas Stats and Information Network, just sending you future after future in the NBA for the regular season. You also have to prepare, and I would assume you're keeping the Clippers profile for last because I think Pablo Torre wants Kawhi Leonard publicly executed with the way that he's been going on about this whole thing with the Clippers. But that is neither here nor there, so make sure you keep an eye out for that coming in the next week or so, the NBA betting guide. Absolutely excited to read through that thing. But let's start. We got the NFL. We've got college football this coming weekend, and let's go there. Let's go with college first because I know you've got quite a few more there than we do in the National Football League. We've talked a lot about this Boise-Notre Dame game throughout the week. There is a super contest out here with college, and I'm going to lay it because it's 20.5 there with Notre Dame for the contest entry. What do you make of the side, if anything? Because I know you have a play on the total, so what's your breakdown for this matchup?
Yeah, I'm going over in this game. It's 62.5 is the number I took. It's a really high number, but it is not high given the way that these two teams have been playing. I mean, Notre Dame averaging 56 points per game over the last 2 weeks, has not been able to stop anybody. I know it looked a little bit better against Arkansas last week, but this is a team that's just barely inside the top 100 in dropback EPA per play allowed. And I believe that Boise has gotten that passing game going with Maddox Madsen. They're averaging 49 points per game over the last 3 weeks. I just feel like this is going to be a game where neither team is able to stop one another. And I will mention as well, the Fighting Irish running the ball extremely well, not just with Love. I think this is going to be a game where we see both Price and Love find the end zone. And I just don't think the stops are going to become easy to come by.
So the College Football Betting Podcast, which Matt Humans and Tim Murray do every single week, they had a great line about Wisconsin and Michigan. Wisconsin, obviously, in as many would call a desperation spot, but as Humans so eloquently put it, they're desperate because they're bad. So what do we make of the Badgers here against Michigan? Are we going to trust that Wisconsin, with desperation on the mind, can stay inside of a big number?
Yeah, so I'm a Wisconsin fan. I went to Wisconsin. I have no interest in backing this team, but I think that 17.5 is just a big number for a game with a total of 43. It is very hard to cover those types of spreads in low-scoring games. And for as bad as Wisconsin has been, it's a top 15 team in rush EPA per play allowed. I think they will be able to keep the Wolverines' running game in check. That will then put a lot on Bryce Underwood going against a Wisconsin secondary that has been pretty bad this year, but does have talented players and is coming off a bye week to kind of, figure some things out. And the bye week is pretty important for the Wisconsin offense as well, because Danny O'Neal, the quarterback, has gotten all of the first team reps for pretty much the first time this year. Billy Edwards has been, the starting quarterback for this team, has left 2 games injured. This is the first time that they're really kind of leaning into O'Neal as the starter. So I think they're just going to be much better prepared on both sides of the ball this week. And yeah, it is a desperate team in some ways. Like, they're almost coaching for Fickell's job. They'll probably lose this game by, at least 10 points, but I do think they keep it within the number, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's close for 3 quarters or so.
Zach Cohen with us again, Progressive Guest Line. You can follow him up on X, at Betting on X. I don't think that there's been a team that has been more impressive. Maybe it's a little bit of hyperbole, but I've been wildly impressed with what Texas Tech has done. And I know they threw a lot of money at the program, but they've looked very good in a lot of different positions, key edge rusher spots. Quarterback is now healthy again, it would seem, for the Red Raiders. So what do we make of them laying double digits against Houston this weekend?
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I was hesitant with this team. Like, I don't know if, buying players in college football is the way to win, but we have now seen a few teams do it. And this is a team that I think has one of the most impressive wins of the season, what they did to Utah at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Like, I think that Utes team is pretty damn strong defensively, and they do have a dynamic offense with Dan Pierce. So I was really impressed with what Texas Tech did defensively in that game. And I think that line is going to wreak havoc against Connor Wegman and a Houston team that I believe is very, very fraudulent compared to that undefeated record. I think, what we saw last week against Oregon State was, borderline pathetic, needing overtime to beat that type of team. It's not impressive. And that is another thing I'm factoring, in going into this game, is the fact that they played, a physical game on the road last week, now playing against a Texas team that's Texas Tech team is coming off a bye. I just think this is a great spot to back the Red Raiders. And as you mentioned, Morton is healthy coming into this game.
All right, we go to the National Football League with Zach Cohen, our senior editor here at VSiN.com. We've had 2 people, you're the second, bring this game up, Giants and Saints, and it is going to be 2 for 2. What side do you like?
I have the Saints money line in this game, minus 122. It's one of my bigger plays this week. I just don't think that we're going to see a lot out of this Giants passing game. I mean, I don't think that they looked very comfortable letting Jackson Dart drop back and pass against the Chargers last week. And, now that they are down Malik Neighbors, I'd imagine things are only going to be a little bit more rough in that, area of the game. So this is a Saints team that has actually been, pretty decent stopping the run. They're 15th in the league in rush EPA per play allowed. If they can kind of take Scatterbo out of this one and force Dart to be a passer, I don't see this being a good game for the Giants offense. And I think that the Saints, have been a little bit better than their record suggests. They've been competitive in some of their losses against the 49ers. Hung around against the Bills last week. This is a better team than people think. And I know that it's one that, everyone says is going to be in the mix for that number one pick next year, but, they've been competitive in doing it. And these are the types of games that these teams kind of live for. It's like their first chance to get a win, and they're going to be doing it at home.
All right, I know that you write a lot on the website. You also focus on some pretty big games of the week. You had Vandy in Alabama. You had Miami and Florida up on the website as well that people can go check out at VSiN.com. Give us the sit rep on what you think Vandy and Alabama is going to be like, because a lot of Diego Pavia as an underdog. This is a big revenge spot, though, and it's quite a different number than what Alabama was laying on the road last year against this team.
Yeah, I'm laying the 10 with Alabama. It's not because I don't think Vanderbilt's good. Like, this has been an impressive team to start this year, but this is a team that does struggle to guard the deep pass. They are a little bit too aggressive in their scheme. They send a lot of blitzes. They trust in their corners, in man coverage, and, they do play some soft zone as well. I just think that Alabama, with the way that they're attacking down the field with Ty Simpson, they're going to kind of light it up in this game, I think. I think they're going to put a big number on that scoreboard, and I think that the Alabama defense is also going to have much more success on early downs than they did last year. This has been a good team on first and second down, stopping the run, and I think that that's going to help them a lot. And in what you said is a revenge spot. I do think that that's, can be overplayed, but I think it means a little bit of something to them this year. That was kind of the game that really started, all the bad talk for DeBoer last year.
Mm-hmm. All right, last couple of minutes here with you. Again, VSiN.com, check out all of Zach's work. I am alone today. There is nobody to stop me in any way, shape, or form. So we're going to do this for the last 2 minutes. The NBA preseason is underway. We are right around the corner from the association. I wanted to ask you, because the Warriors have finally been in the news. We've been waiting this for a long time. Al Horford is officially a Golden State Warrior. We get the thing done with Jonathan Kuminga. Where are you at with Golden State? Because I think this is one of the teams that you're relatively high on, are you not?
Yes, I'm very high on this Warriors team. I know a lot of people are very worried about, the injury history of these older players, but you're giving Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green a floor spacing center that can still contribute defensively. Al Horford is obviously at an advanced age. He is not the player he was, 4 or 5 years ago, and he was a much better player 10 years ago. But this is still, a player that grades out pretty well in terms of defense. I think he can guard a little bit on the perimeter. He's a very good positional defender. I think he's going to take this Warriors team to kind of new heights. This is a team that was awesome once they got Butler last year, one of the best defensive teams in the league, turned teams over at a very high rate. They got to the free throw line a little bit more with Butler. Now you're bringing in a 5 that is much better than Quinton Post. And I just think that there's just a lot more there this year. And if they can make the Kuminga thing work, that would be great. If they can't, they need to turn him into a player like a Royce O'Neal for the Suns, or the, Malik Monk, the trades that they kind of talked about this offseason. That would be fine as well. I just think that this is still a championship, makeup, the championship DNA team. We'll talk about that, but it's a very good team on both ends of the floor.
30 seconds, scale of 1 to 10. Dorian Finney-Smith now expected to miss the start of the season. How worried should we be about the Rockets with that and the Van Vliet injury?
I'm not that worried about them. I mean, it definitely dings their championship hopes a little, but I still think this is a team that you should be looking over on their win total. I think that playing Thompson at the 1, playing Reed Shepherd a little bit more, these are going to be good things for them in the future, but also things that will be fine for them in the regular season. They still are loaded with defensive players. I think Şengün has a big year this year, and Durant's just going to fit in seamlessly. So not really worried about their win total, only worried about the big picture championship.
At Betting on X NBA guide coming soon. He's been working on it from cover to cover. Zach, we appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot as always.
Thank you.
All right, we come back. Best bets, wrap it up. Give everybody selections. Stormy's picks as well, even though she's off. Ours for the weekend, too, so don't go anywhere.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Last couple of minutes here on Money Moves. Appreciate everybody joining us. Remember, if you missed out on any part of the show, you can check it out. We have our individual podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Check out Money Moves. Like, rate, review, and subscribe. Since we're on the topic as well, Mitch Moss just walked into the studio to drop his bag off. He's got a wonderful, I would call it wine-colored pullover, right? Quarter zip on today. Mitch and I, of course, do Pod to the Futures, which I would also stress that you check out wherever you get your podcasts. Mitchell and Paul will be on coming up in about 15 minutes from now. We'll take you through on this Friday. And remember, later tonight, don't worry, we'll remind you again before we get out of here, but it is a Friday, Circa Friday Football Invitational. We had two contestants on earlier this week in Chris Vasile and Paul Bovey. You can check those out in the Money Moves podcast feed as well. With that, let's get to Best Bets, brought to you by G-Bank, the official bank of VSiN. It's built with sports bettors in mind. Right now, you can earn a $50 cash reward bonus once you're approved and your account is open with a G-Bank Visa Signature Card. Most credit cards treat sportsbook and gaming transactions as cash advances. Even when it's not your own money, G-Bank treats them as regular purchases. No cash advance fees, saving you up to 3 to 5% on every deposit. 1% cash back, all eligible sportsbook and gaming transactions. 2% cash back, everything else you buy. Apply now at VSiN.com/GBank, VSIN.com/GBank. Let's start with me. We will go first with college football. College football has not treated me as well as what we've done in the National Football League, so hopefully trying to get things right here in the realm of college. 4 plays in college football, 2 of which are tonight. So we'll know if this weekend's going to be terrible. It already is. Lost out of the Survivor entry. New Mexico, money line plus 115. San Diego State minus 6 later this evening. Cincinnati minus 1.5 this week as well against Iowa State. And then Duke laid the bad number. It got to 3 earlier this week. Jumped in, back down to 2.5. It's all juice, though. So Duke minus 3. That is the game, of course, that Stormy Buonantony will be on the sidelines for against Cal. Just think the number's a little short here, especially given what Cal was catching against the Minnesota squad that I think is worse, and then what Duke is out there, and I think that this number should be a little bit higher. Really dig what Jaron Cave-Sangapulatelli has done, but I do think that this is going to be obviously their biggest challenge coming back home after a cross-country trip, and we'll lay that with the Blue Devils. As far as the NFL is concerned, our deep analysis that Stormy ignored yesterday with Kyron Williams ended up getting there with the longest rush over for Williams in that game. So let's head to the weekend with a couple of plays here. We will play the, as we called them and found out, the lowest power-rated team in the NFL. Give me the Titans plus 7.5 going into the NFL weekend. We have the teaser, Giants up to 8.5, Panthers plus 7.5. Panthers money line as well, small minus 103. I think they're going to go off as small favorites, so I wouldn't be shocked if that's the case against the Miami Dolphins. As we have talked about, very anti-Dolphin so far this year. I'm going to regret this. For the second straight week, I will take the Cincinnati Bengals plus 10.5 at home against the Detroit Lions. We did see that they did have to add a defensive back, 2 injured reserve this weekend. I just don't know if this defense, I think, is good from a pass rushing standpoint. You don't think the secondary is that good. Still have Jamar Chase, still have T. Higgins. You're at home at the bottom of the barrel. We will buy low on the Cincinnati Bengals. And then Patriots team total over 20.5 at plus 105. A small shout out to Paul Bovey, who was with us. Really like that angle for the Patriots. Think the Patriots are going to be live here as well against the Buffalo Bills, but do think we could be in a universe in which they have success, but ultimately still maybe fall short from a point spread perspective. So I'll ask the Patriots to score some points here. So in totality, Cincinnati minus 1.5, Duke minus 3, New Mexico money line plus 115, San Diego State laying 6, Titans plus 7.5, Giants 8.5, and a Panthers 7.5 teaser. Panthers money line as well. Bengals plus 10.5, and the Patriots team total over 20.5. Looking to keep this thing going. By the way, we had a bunch of great guests. Zach Cohen was with us, our senior editor. Let's go through his plays that he gave us just a couple of minutes ago. Was on Wisconsin, his alma mater, plus 17.5 against Michigan. The Boise State Notre Dame over at 62.5. Texas Tech minus 11 versus Houston. And then Saints money line minus 122. Will Hill, who was on with us in the first hour. You can check it out wherever you get your podcasts. Minnesota and Cleveland out there in England, under 36.5. He also on the Saints money line at minus 120. The under in Eagles and Broncos. Vandy plus 10.5 against Alabama. Purdue plus 9.5 against Illinois, and then that Notre Dame team total over 41.5. And last, certainly not least, Chris Vasile, who was with us just about 20 minutes ago. 2 plays in the Premier League for Chris. We had a Leeds shot on goal over 3.5, a Liverpool under their team total 1.5 of total goals against Chelsea, Cincinnati minus 1.5, and then Miami minus 4. Before we get out of here, I want to hit on a little bit of news and hit some games as well as we kind of go along in the National Football League, because there's a couple of spots that have looked pretty interesting to me as we're getting more developing news for some of these. But let's expand a little bit more, because we hit on this briefly, and I'm not surprised because this is worth noting as well. We are starting to kind of see a discrepancy in the market. Some of the spots that got to 7 on the Indianapolis Colts are off that 7. We're at 6.5. Some spots are at 6.5 juiced to the favorite side, but multiple injury notes for this game for both sides. The first of which is Brock Bowers missing another day of practice today, so the Raiders might not be with him this coming weekend. Indianapolis, Kenny Moore in that secondary is not going to play for Indianapolis this coming weekend. Alec Pierce out as well. But this is, I think, and Chris Vasile, who was with us earlier this week, professional bettor, brought this up and like, hey, maybe have a little trepidation when it comes to Indianapolis. They're going to be a top survivor pick this weekend. I personally agree with that sentiment. Indy is a very good offensive team. I don't think there's any question about how legitimate they are on that side. They have very good skill position talent, both at running back and a wide receiver. Say what you want about Daniel Jones, but he is fitting within the system. Shane Steichen is not asking him to do that much. Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, we don't need to go through. We know how good they are offensively. Having said that, with Xavier Howard's now retirement during the week after getting destroyed by Puka Nacua and the Rams the Sunday prior, with Kenny Moore's injury as well, and the injuries that they've suffered both in training camp preseason, this has been a team that at the cornerback spot is really thinned out and not particularly skilled, I would say. And if there is certain matchups where they could get exposed, especially defensively, we saw it a little bit last week against the Rams, and I think we're going to see it potentially as we move forward. Again, some of the great stats that are out there for Indianapolis and just the NFL in general and what you can find. Indianapolis, from a defensive standpoint, bottom 5 if you're looking at it from a success rate. In fact, Indy, 26th in the National Football League in defensive success rate, despite facing the second easiest schedule by opposing offenses to this point. They've gotten a lot out of turnovers, 6th most expected points added coming off of turnovers, so that's really helped buoy this team so far. But if those turnovers stop, you could really see a scenario where Indy, even against a team that does not have Brock Bowers, maybe struggles defensively and finds themselves in a little bit of a tighter shootout than most expect. That coming into this weekend, and I do think they're going to be, and I don't think there's any question about it, a really popular survivor play. Let's go Tampa Bay and Seattle really quickly. I'm going to be curious to see where this number ultimately closes. If you jumped on the gun really quickly at the beginning of the week, you laid 2.5 with Seattle. Now we have all of these injury concerns with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tons of guys that aren't practicing. We have Bucky Irving reported today that he's officially out for this game. Some spots are getting to 4, circa. One of those spots that is now sitting at 4 for the Seattle Seahawks. I would expect that is our closing number, maybe even 4.5, depending on what happens. And the big news, of course, is going to be whether or not it sounds like Baker Mayfield is going to play. I don't think there's any question about it, but it is worrisome that last week he turns in some limited practices throughout the week, heading into that Philly game, ultimately plays, but misses a practice earlier this week with a bicep injury in his throwing arm. That is concerning. I don't know if the bicep, percentage-wise, what it is responsible for in terms of throwing a football, but I would expect it has some role in throwing a football. And for a quarterback, that's going to be pretty interesting. And from the NFC West standpoint, as we kind of circle back to where we began today, this game looms large for Seattle. If you can win this game and grab your 4th win coming off of extended rest, the Rams look extremely vulnerable, having lost 2 out of the last 3, both of which they probably should not have lost. And the 49ers continue to win despite the fact that they are injured and beat to hell. You don't have that head-to-head yet with the San Francisco 49ers. You just lost to them in week 1. But to be able to maintain your spot at the top of what looks like a very winnable NFC West, it is a massive contest for the Seattle Seahawks. We talked about this this week. 16-1 Seattle was beginning of the week before that matchup yesterday to win the NFC. Sam Darnold coming off of last Thursday night, 80-1 to win MVP. this could be a game that we look back on that has some real serious ramifications for a top seed in the NFC, winning the NFC West. I know it's not an important game in terms of the division. They're not facing a division foe, but still, Seahawks, of course, a big spot to potentially keep this thing going this coming weekend. All right, we're going to be all done here. Make sure you check out VSiN.com. We have a lot of great stuff up on the website. But coming up next, Mitch and Paul will take you from here. We have Follow the Money. That's going to be on with you for the next 3 hours. After that, man, really love listening to it and watching every single week. That is, of course, the Circa Friday Football Invitational. Matt Humans will have you later today as they get you ready for the contest. We had 2 contestants on this week, and hopefully our guys, Massaro and Paul Bovey, can perform a little bit better and climb up those standings. But it's been a fast and furious competition as guys and gals making their way toward closer and closer the elimination and knockout stages. Go to VSiN.com, check out the podcast, Money Moves as well, wherever you get your pods, and make sure you just check out all of us. We'd appreciate a like, rate, review, and subscribe for the Pods of the Futures as well. We'll see you on Monday. Good luck this weekend.